Morning all. Matt Hewison from Net Defence back again. Hope everybody is well. It looks like we've got a near enough full complement for this session this morning, so it sort of makes sense to get things kicked off. So, welcome to Net Defence's webinar. Security is not just an appliance. My name's Matt, and this morning's webinar will be hosted by my colleague and penetration tester, Aidan Steele. So the webinar this morning will cover off testing, and we'll explore other elements around the concept of testing. Aidan will examine several areas such as testing myths, insider threat, and risk management. So we would like to keep the WebEx interactive. However, in a bid to maintain continuity throughout, can I ask everybody to put themselves on mute? There will be some time at the end of questions and answers through the presentation. Also, I will just make a note that if questions do arise during the course of the WebEx, there's a function to ask questions on the panel on the right hand side. If you want to type away and enter those in, Aidan can answer them ad hoc, or alternatively, please do feel free to leave them to the end. As I said, there will be a good window for us to answer questions. So again, if you'd like to mute and Aidan, that note, I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. As Matt says, my name's Aidan. I'm here to give a little bit of a high-level overview about information security and why it shouldn't be treated simply as an appliance sitting at the boundary of your network. A little bit of an introduction. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi, Paul Versi here.
Hi Paul, Matt here from Net Defence. We've just kicked things off, so you've not missed anything. But Aidan's just about to start the presentation on the WebEx. If I can ask you to just put yourself on mute, we're going to continue with the presentation, and also there's going to be a window at the end for any questions, if that's okay.
Fine. Sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all.
Right. Thanks a lot, Paul. Okay. So a little bit of an introduction. Now, no one's saying that appliances are bad. They all have their part to play, but they're certainly not a silver bullet when it comes to protecting your assets. And so you shouldn't be solely relying on them. We'll also discuss why point-in-time, twice-a-year pen tests that people swear by aren't quite all they're cracked up to be. Or to upskill your own staff to carry out security tests as part of their normal business practice. And also why the inside of your network, which is often ignored, is just as important as the outward-facing elements. And finally, we'll move on to the topic of risk management, as exciting as that is, and why it's the board, not just the IT team, that needs to take responsibility. Now, I promise, hand on heart, that this is the only statistics slide. As per last year's PwC survey, 63% of small organisations suffered a malware infection. Just a year previously, that figure was at 45%. Now, this is a serious figure considering some of the ransomware that we've seen floating around in recent months. And for those who may not know, that's the category of malware that encrypts all of the data on the disk and requires payment before release. As well as that, 38% of small organisations suffered unauthorised outsider attacks, which is up from 33% in 2014. It's not quite as impressive an increase, admittedly, but it shows that the good guys are certainly losing ground. Most importantly, and I cannot stress this point enough, respondents, at least partially, blamed the human element, not technology, for their worst breach suffered. 48% said it was down to human error, 33% lack of staff awareness, and 17% said it was down to poor vetting procedures. Attackers are realising that the tech is getting harder to crack, and than the humans, and it definitely shows. A wee bit more on that later. Now, let's be honest here, unless it's actually happened to you, the statistics alone will never drive you to do anything. Perhaps the likes of Talk would like to add comments to this. I'd like to take this opportunity just to have a little bit of a moan about appliance vendors. And these guys will call you up and tell you that their products are the be-all and end-all of security. They'll accompany it with some clever sales patter to make you believe it. They'll tell you that they know the ins and outs of your business and every risk that you personally face. They'll tell you that they're able to react to change before it's occurred, which in most scenarios doesn't really make sense. They'll tell you that their licensing hardware and software are designed for compatibility and ease of ownership. But what is it compatible with? Who is it easy for? There is no one-size-fits-all solution. Now, all the above, it's not exactly true. Don't get me wrong, the product might actually be really good and perhaps the best in its field. Technology plays its part, but you need to consider whether it's appropriate for your business. And in no way are you being sold a cure-all security solution. And there's no way that they can really know your own business risks and impacts as well as you do. And they cannot, by definition, react to changes that have not occurred, with some exceptions with behaviour analysis. And I have no doubt that the licensing hardware and software being sold is compatible, easy to own and maintain, but whether they're compatible and easy for you is pretty much potluck. Right, so now I've had a bit of a vent, let's discuss some of the common myths revolving around external penetration testing. Firstly, that completing a yearly pen test and the huge report that you receive mean that you're safe until the next one. Potentially, the moment the test is complete, a new vulnerability could be discovered, which is why this should be an ongoing process of testing and remediation. Secondly, that you need a pen tester to tell you what patches are missing on your equipment. Of course you don't. Admins should be checking this as part of the day-to-day operations and making sure everything's kept up to date. Thirdly, that you need a pen tester to scan your systems. This can all be done in-house. And fourthly, that you need a pen tester to tell you that having promiscuous rules on your firewall is a bad idea. Anyone with a basic knowledge of what a firewall actually does could quite easily do that. And finally, the myth that your own IT admins won't have the skills to run security tests. At a basic day-to-day level, the only knowledge required here is of basic networking, how to run the tools, and how to read the output. You could have all your admins trained up in hardly any time at all. So what you could do is, for one, stop buying into the myth that because you have a penetration test once a year and fix the problems that day, that you're safe until the next one. We need to accept that penetration is just a point-in-time snapshot, and as the state of security changes, we need to be evolving with it, and this needs to be an ongoing process. If, yet again, the pen tester is telling you that you need to patch your systems, that should tell you everything you need to know about the work being carried out by your admins, and your patching policy even more so. You could upskill your existing administration team and give them the tools to run security testing as a weekly or even daily business as usual process, much the same way that you would run backups. You need to sort of back off some of the point-in-time testing strategies and move to monitoring so that you know in real time when things are going wrong. And when you do buy a tester's time, get them to focus on the important internal stuff. Get them to review architecture, applications, your business critical systems. Get them to focus on all the ways that your business resilience might be compromised. If all they're doing is reporting on unpatched systems and open firewall ports, you're not getting as much return on your investment. Now let's talk about the times when you do want to get a pen tester on board. We'll kick off with a little bit of web app testing. It's 2016, we've all either got a website or we're developing one. And in a lot of cases, our businesses rely solely on them. As such, this is a big area that you'll want a specialist on board for, and some things to consider. You can't solely rely on what your web app provider is telling you with regards to your security. The developers are very good at making good-looking functional applications, but when it comes to security, I can guarantee that your app isn't Fort Knox. Security isn't second nature to developers. You should independently verify it from an expert and then teach whoever built it what was wrong, so eventually they'll start building apps with the tight security that they claim. You should work to understand the data involved within a data and business impact assessment. And this will help to assess the criticality of the service, potential fallout, and allow you to deal with the risks appropriately. You need to remember that in many cases websites can be used as a tool to attack users rather than the company itself. And this is done by manipulating your site's code to trick the user's browsers into carrying out unwanted actions. For example, downloading malware or sending information to a remote site. You need to consider your clients and the indirect impacts that they might have on your business. And some of the more common pitfalls include simple things like configuration mistakes, outdated software, insecure coding practices, and even something as simple as not changing default admin passwords. Now, while some of these, like outdated software, should be kept on top of by the admins, things like coding practices and the more complex vulnerabilities should have a specialist touch to investigate. You'll also want to carry out internal testing, i.e. having a pen tester connect to your internal network and check for a whole different category of vulnerabilities. And this is something you'll definitely want a hand with. Again, things like outdated software should be kept on top of by your admins, but for the more complex problems, you'll be wanting a specialist, especially on crucial systems. Internal attackers are usually much more well-resourced. They've clearly got the knowledge and capability to get onto your network, either through technical skill or even employment. This means that they'll likely be able to cover their tracks much easier and ensure that you don't know what's going on until it's too late. Internal testing shouldn't just encompass your electronic systems. It should include physical elements like locks, CCTV coverage, and the human elements of security. And you'll need someone to look at your end-to-end business process and determine your weak spots, which may not actually fall within your traditional IT systems. And as strange as it may sound, you'll also need someone to teach both your sysadmins and developers how to think like a hacker. This will allow them to adopt a more secure approach to the work they're carrying out and, in turn, allow the security specialists to focus on the more obscure issues affecting your business. I've touched upon the human element a little, and I want to dig a little bit deeper. Social engineers, or human hackers, prey on human nature to get access to what they want. The desire to be liked that humans inherently have plays right into their hands. Often, all they have to do is ask for something and they'll get it. They'll target the weak, the helpful, and those least inclined to make a fuss or confront when something seems odd. Your staff won't even know that they've done anything wrong. There's plenty of ways this can be done as well, through phishing, emails, or phone calls. These are all very popular methods. However, the more confident ones will likely just turn up on your doorstep and work the charm a little to convince people that they're supposed to be there. They might even be wearing the disguise. And this is by far the cheapest and, depending on the attacker, easiest way to attack you. It's all well and good having a big heavy door with the latest and unhackable biometric technologies powering the beast, but as soon as someone holds it open for someone, it might as well be a beaded curtain, and the attacker doesn't have to spend a penny. This sort of attack is attempted on such a vast scale, but even the relatively tiny success rate is massively profitable. As such, you need to be educating and supporting your staff on general security awareness. They need to know what the policy is and the ways that people will try to convince them to ignore it. You need to be giving them the confidence and the means to question and escalate where appropriate any situation where they might have the slightest doubt as to the intentions of the person that they're speaking to. If you do that, no one can turn around and say, well, how was I supposed to know? You'll develop a decent security culture and ensure that your staff are as well equipped as they can be to fend off these kind of attacks. If you don't do it, well, I'm certainly not blaming the staff member that was caught out. But what if the social engineer or more technical attacker is already a member of staff? This is another vector of attack that I touched upon earlier that I want to speak about in a little more detail. Tying into social engineering, lack of security awareness means that current and ex-employees have the easiest time gaining access to resources they shouldn't have access to. It's important to remember that these attackers aren't always the most outspoken fountains of negativity within the company. And quite often it's the most charismatic, friendly chap that you would never suspect. There's simply no way to tell. These folks know exactly how the system works. They know where to get the goods, and they know exactly who they need to target for information. In essence, they'll have a field day if proper training's not in place. Most of these attacks are motivated by coercion, whether it's through blackmail or promises of money from competitors or criminal gangs. You can usually be certain that something else is going on behind the scenes. And in the cases where gangs are involved, chances are that the insider threat has been kitted out with some highly sophisticated tools to help avoid normal detection. By the time you know something is going on, it's far too late. And that's why staff need to be trained to the point where they stop becoming a liability and start becoming a valuable preventative measure in protecting the business. And that's all well and good, but how do you test human nature? Much like the external and internal testing we discussed earlier, you should regularly have social engineering tests carried out. These tests, much like the others, but instead of being armed with a suite of hacking tools, the tester will be armed with a warm smile and maybe a high-vis vest and a toolbox. Using some common social engineering tactics, they'll be able to gauge the general security awareness of your staff. If all goes well, they'll be stopped at the reception desk. If not, you might find them pulling data off your servers with a password that the IT team provided. And these tests should be carried out after security awareness training in order to test the effectiveness of the program. Of course, if it doesn't go well, you should revise the training program, rinse and repeat. Now the most exciting part, risk management. I know it's nothing new, but it's a crucial element of keeping your business as secure as possible, and it deserves just as much attention as the cooler areas of security. If your board manages risks and develops a risk appetite against international risk management framework, then that's corporate governance. Ignorance of the risks simply won't stand in court. If you find yourself facing legal repercussions under the Data Protection Act and your defence is, well, we didn't know the rules, then you could expect to pay out some hefty fines. Standards such as ISO 27001 provide an excellent risk management framework to build an effective ISMS that's both flexible and tailored to your business. If the responsibility lies solely within your IT department, then you're doing it wrong. The responsibility for securing information lies with everyone. And also, if your risk management system is simply a spreadsheet with IT risk as a line item, then I'm afraid there's a wee bit more work involved. So just to summarise what we've gone over, don't solely rely on appliances to manage your security. Use them by all means, they're brilliant, but just do not rely on them. Upskill your staff and introduce security testing as a day-to-day process. Now, I understand it might be a bit bumpy at the start, but soon enough it will just become second nature to them. You need to stop subscribing to the once-a-year model for external testing. Whilst providing a decent snapshot of your security stance, it is just that, a snapshot. This should be an ongoing process, day to day, week to week. And that's not to say don't use pen testers, don't use consultants. I'd be out of a job if I convinced people of that. We are useful, just focus us on the things that matter most to your business, thus maximising the return on your investment. Of course, I could come in and tell you that using Windows XP is a bad idea, but I'd be better put to use analysing the less obvious vulnerabilities surrounding your critical systems and processes. And finally, implement a proper risk management system. Make it traceable to a well-recognised standard like ISO 27001 and make sure that your board both understand it and accept the risks outlined within. And there you have it, a one-size-fits-all security solution. Thanks everyone for coming along, and I will now open up the floor for any questions that you might have.
Okay, thanks, Aidan. So another opportunity for anybody to ask any questions. We'll give you a couple of seconds. Okay.
I think everyone's fallen asleep, Matt.
I think you've covered everything off in great detail, or to the level required. Okay, guys. Aidan, thanks very much for the insight throughout the presentation. It seems to be an interesting concept in terms of when we look at security from an overall perspective and what's actually involved. So we were looking at a mixture of technology, process, people, and the ability to be able to respond there. I'm sure that there are a number of questions because you picked up on some really interesting aspects. Certainly, the element that I'm seeing a lot of interest in with some of our customers at the moment is the whole insider threat piece. However, I do appreciate that sometimes questions like this, by their very nature, aren't the easiest to ask in a public forum. So our email addresses, so Aidan and myself's email address is on that final slide. Please do feel free to ask any questions that you want offline, either with regards to the presentation or just security in general. We'll be more than happy to help. You guys will be contacted by my colleague Nicola Armstrong, who's head of our marketing at Net Defence, just to get some feedback around the session. Please do be as honest as possible. We do intend on running a number of these sessions over the next few months to 6 months. So any feedback you've got, positive or negative, will be most welcome. And I'll ask one more. I'll give one more opportunity for questions. Anybody got any final questions or any questions at all? Okay, great. Well, on that note, again, thank you very much for attending this morning. Do appreciate that. Obviously, you're all very busy people, so that's fantastic. And like I said, anything you need as a follow-up, please do feel free to contact us, and we can close the session there. Thank you very much, guys.